Nadia's specialists caught a real one this week, a migration on the billing tables that drops a column with no backfill. The migration specialist flagged it, and the coordinator posted the warning in plain English: needs a security review before this merges. Marco's payments team read that comment, weighed it, called it low risk, and pressed merge a few minutes after the flag went up. Nobody did anything wrong. A comment invites judgment, and Marco's team used theirs. The specialists caught the bug, and the merge went straight past all three of them because advice is not a gate. Freeze it right there, because a correct warning that shipped anyway is exactly what the exam turns into a question. The question is simple to see: what do you change so the next warning holds? The guide answers with three mechanisms, and it makes each one its own scored objective. A hook that intercepts the call before it goes out, a handoff that moves the work to someone who can act, and a human who has to sign. Two of the three sit in the biggest domain on the exam, roughly 16 of the 60 questions you'll sit. The third sits in the smallest domain, worth about 9. By the end, you'll read a requirement and name which of the three it needs and why the other two are the wrong shape. The architect question parked in the corner all episode is the second of the 4. What can it touch? Start with why the comment failed, because the reason picks the mechanism. The guide has one unusually blunt sentence about this: where deterministic compliance is required, prompt instructions alone have a non-zero failure rate. Read it as an architect. It isn't saying prompts are bad, it's saying a prompt is a probability. The guide sorts your options into two families, and the first is enforcement hooks and prerequisite gates that run whether anyone listens. Guidance is the other family, and a system prompt, a rule file, and a comment on a pull request all live in it together. Nadia already has receipts. On 2 of the last 10 runs, her coordinator posted approval without the security specialist running at all. That's what a non-zero failure rate looks like up close, and it's the cold open as a principle. Advice is not a gate. The first mechanism that can actually refuse sits right on the tool call, so meet the hook. Mechanism 1 is the hook, a program you register against a named point in the run, and it fires whether or not anything asks. That's the whole idea. The events group by how often they fire. A few fire once per session, at the start and at the end, and a few fire once per turn. The busiest shelf fires on every tool call, with extra events for failures and permission requests. 2 of them you'll use by name. Pre-tool use fires before the call goes out, and that's the interception point, because nothing has happened yet. Post-tool use fires after the tool answers, but before the model reads the answer, and the guide tests that gap directly. 3 servers answer with time in 3 shapes. 1, a bare number, 1 a status code with no words in it. A post-tool use hook rewrites them in the return path, and the model only ever sees one format, because the cleanup happened before it looked. Watching every call is useful, but Nadia needs to stop one. So how does the hook actually say no? The hook can see every call. Now the whole course leans on how it refuses one. When pre-tool use fires, the hook reads a small block of JSON on standard input, and 2 fields carry the call, tool name, and tool input, the exact arguments. There are 2 ways to say no. The blunt one is an exit code of 2, a blocking error, so the call is prevented and your reason is shown on standard error. The polite one is exit 0 with a JSON decision, a permission field saying allow, or deny with a reason, or ask a person. For Nadia, that's a dozen lines. Approval call in, security result missing, exit 2, no approval post. Now the precedence, because hooks and permission rules share this ground, and the exam loves that seam. A hook that answers allow doesn't bypass your rules. A deny rule still blocks, and an ask rule still prompts. But a hook that exits 2 stops the call before the rules are even consulted, so it outranks an allow rule. Compress that into the sentence worth memorizing. A hook can always stop a call, and it cannot open one your rules have closed. One trap before we leave, because a gate can look installed and never exist. A hook registers against a matcher, and plain names with list punctuation match exactly those names. Anything fancier quietly becomes a regular expression, and the expression is unanchored. So a bare server prefix on its own matches no tool, and it has to be a pattern that reaches through to the tool names behind it. So the gate holds and the merge waits, but the work it stopped still needs doing, and a blocked call doesn't do it. Mechanism 2, because blocking is only half a design. The stopped work still has to reach someone who can act. The guide pairs them. A hook that blocks a violation also redirects the work to another workflow. The shape of that redirect matters because the person receiving it can't see the conversation that produced it. So, a handoff is never a notification. It carries the identifiers, the root cause, and the recommended action. The same objective also covers ordering a prerequisite gate that blocks a downstream call until the upstream step has returned what it should. A gate and an envelope are still machinery talking to machinery. The third mechanism puts a person in the path on purpose. Mechanism 3 is the signature, and the exam treats it as architecture, not a fallback. Permission rules evaluate in a fixed order, deny first, then ask, then allow, and the first match decides. Specificity doesn't change that order. The middle tier is the signature, because an ask rule prompts even when an allow rule also matches. Put an ask on anything touching billing, and a person owns that decision every time by construction. Then the harder half, deciding what the person actually sees, because reviewer time is scarce. The guide's warning is the good aggregate hiding a bad segment inside it. So you measure per document type and per field, and you only automate the segments that earned it. And you keep sampling the cases you trusted, randomly and stratified, so a new failure lands in your sample before it lands in production. And asking the model how sure it feels, then routing on that number isn't calibration at all. Calibration is field level confidence scored against a labeled validation set with thresholds read off the data. 3 mechanisms on the bench, so sit the guide's own question and watch which one it asks for. This one is a real published sample from the guide, and it lands square on the ground, the 3 mechanisms just built. A support agent is supposed to verify who the customer is before touching any of their orders. Production data says that in a small but steady share of cases, it skips the check, looks the order up from the name alone, and refunds the wrong person. Option 1, a programmatic prerequisite that blocks the order, lookup, and the refund until verification has returned a verified customer ID. Option 2, strengthen the system prompt to state that verification is mandatory before any order operation. Option 3, add examples of the agent verifying first, even when the customer volunteers the order number. Option 4, a routing classifier that reads each request and switches on only the tools it needs. Name the question first. Every option decides whether a call may proceed. So this is a what can it touch question. Then find the absolute. And here is this episode's twist. There's no must and no never anywhere in that stem. The absolute hides in the consequence. Money moves on a wrong refund and the failure rate is already stated as non-zero. A stated non-zero failure rate does the same work as a never when money sits on the other side of the rule. Now the eliminations run themselves. The stronger prompt is guidance, the examples are guidance, and guidance can't drive a stated failure rate to 0. And option 2 is worse than wrong. That instruction is already in the system prompt, so it's the thing that already failed said louder. That's Marco's comment all over again. Advice is not a gate, and a second quote of it doesn't make one. Option 4 dies on a different axis because it changes which tools exist when the complaint was about the order they run in, which leaves the prerequisite gate holding the refund until verification returns a verified ID, and that's the guide's answer. Programmatic enforcement gives a deterministic guarantee that prompts can't wherever a tool sequence carries critical business logic. Look at where the system stands tonight. Same team, 3 new pieces, and none of them ask for cooperation. The approval can't post until the security check has actually returned, and that's the hook. Blocked work leaves with a summary a stranger can act on, and that's the handoff. And anything touching billing waits for a signature, nothing else can pre approve away, and that's the human. Block it when the rule reads off the call itself, hand it off when the work still needs doing, ask for a signature when a person has to own it. Then walk in with the line this episode kept proving. Advice is not a gate, and when a rule has to hold every time you wire it. Next time Marco renames one helper, the reviewer approves it, and a service nobody touched goes down because it can only judge what it's handed.